History-making news: Putin revokes the sale of Alaska to the United States. Russian President Vladimir Putin has signed a decree that could change the world map as we know it. That's right, Russia has declared the historic sale of Alaska to the United States in 1867 null and void. What seemed like a closed chapter in history now reopens one of the most dangerous territorial conflicts of our time, with a possible confrontation between two nuclear powers. Alaska, the northernmost region of North America, is a key strategic point between the United States and Russia, separated by only 53 miles across the Bering Strait. During the Cold War, Alaska's proximity to Russia was always a strategically relevant element for the United States, as the Arctic was an area of military tension. However, direct conflict between the two countries in the region was scarce, with most tensions concentrated in Eastern Europe. Originally, Alaska belonged to the Russian Empire, which sold it to the United States in the late 19th century. The region quickly became one of the richest states in the United States, thanks to its abundant natural resources such as oil and gas. At the time, Russia accepted the sale peacefully without seeking to reclaim the territory. But with the increase in current tensions between Russia and the United States, Alaska is once again a central issue. Last week, a decree signed by Putin declaring the 1867 sale of Alaska illegitimate circulated online, sparking speculation about a new territorial conflict between the two nations. The history of the Russian presence in Alaska dates back to the 17th century, when Russian explorers settled in the region for its vast natural resources such as furs, which were highly valued in Europe. Although Alaska represented a key territory for Russia, remoteness and harsh weather conditions made it difficult to control. At the end of the 19th century, Russia faced economic and military pressures, and the growing influence of Great Britain and the United States posed a threat to its dominance in the region. Faced with the possibility of losing Alaska without compensation, Russia decided to sell it to the United States for $7.2 million. Today, Alaska is one of the richest regions in the world, with a gross domestic product estimated at $50 billion, much more than the price the United States paid for it. Although at the time the American public did not value the territory very much, the gold rush of the late 19th century revealed its economic potential. In the 20th century, the exploitation of its vast oil and gas deposits transformed its economy and made it a key strategic piece for the United States. Putin's decree has generated a wave of speculation. Although it does not specifically mention Alaska or claim its sovereignty, it allocates funds for the identification and protection of Russian property abroad, including historical territories of the Russian Empire and the Soviet Union. This has worried the United States, which fears losing a region rich in natural resources. The decree is interpreted as a response to international sanctions and an attempt by Russia to protect its assets abroad, amidst geopolitical tensions and the war in Ukraine. This move by Putin seems more symbolic than legal, evoking Russia's past greatness and seeking to consolidate national pride and historical legitimacy. Although not a direct claim on Alaska, it represents an effort to reaffirm Russian identity at a time of high political and geopolitical tension. In this final chapter, we will explore the complex geopolitical relationship between Putin and the United States. From the Cold War to recent conflicts, the dynamic between these two powers has been a mix of rivalry and cooperation. We will analyze how Putin's recent revocation of the sale of Alaska could influence future interactions between the two countries, and what implications it could have for global stability. The Cold War marked the beginning of a tense but strategic relationship between Russia and the United States. Both nations have been in a constant tug-of-war, with moments of intense competition and brief periods of collaboration. Putin's recent revocation of the sale of Alaska is a move that could significantly alter this delicate balance. On the one hand, the resumption of Russian control over Alaska could be seen as a direct threat to U.S. national security. This action could trigger a series of diplomatic and military responses, escalating tension between the two nations. On the other hand, it could also open new avenues for dialogue and negotiation, as both countries would seek to avoid a direct conflict with catastrophic consequences globally. It is important to remember that this decision does not occur in a vacuum. Global geopolitics is constantly changing. Other international actors such as China and the European Union will also be watching these developments closely. Global stability could be affected, with possible repercussions in financial markets, military alliances, and trade agreements. Ultimately, the revocation of the sale of Alaska is more than a territorial issue. It is a reflection of the complex and often volatile relationship between Russia and the United States. Only time will tell how this new chapter will influence the future of international relations and global stability. In this episode, we will delve into the fundamental role Vladimir Putin has played in the conflict between Ukraine and Russia. From his strategic decisions to his public speeches, we will examine how his actions have shaped the course of the war and the international repercussions that have arisen. Since the beginning of the conflict, Putin has taken a firm and defiant stance. His strategic decisions, both on the battlefield and in the diplomatic sphere, have been crucial to the development of the war. Not only has he mobilized significant military resources, but he has also employed disinformation tactics and cyber attacks to destabilize Ukraine and its allies. Putin's speeches have been equally forceful. Through nationalist rhetoric and the defense of Russian interests, he has managed to consolidate domestic support while openly challenging the international community. His interventions have generated a wave of sanctions and condemnations, but they have also strengthened his position among certain sectors of the Russian population. The international consequences of the conflict are far-reaching, from the increased NATO military presence in Eastern Europe to the economic sanctions that have affected the Russian economy. Putin's actions have triggered a series of global reactions. The international community is at a crossroads, looking for ways to contain Russian aggression and at the same time avoid an escalation that could lead to an even greater conflict. In conclusion, Putin's role in the war between Ukraine and Russia reflects his leadership style, relentless, strategic, and deeply calculating.